I was pleased the way the doors came out when I made a new set of the aluminum panels for the doors. Again, I got a big scrap piece of right gauge aluminum, and it hardly cost me anything really. And I thought I'm just going to make, rather than stripping, and I've done some repairs already on some of these aluminum original panels. You can see them in the original teal blue. That was on the interior. The exterior had been sprayed a kind of a very thick black. Anyway, I thought I've got this aluminum, hardly paid anything for it. I'm just going to fabricate a whole new set of panels. They'll be nice and straight and beautiful. And then we'll put a two-part epoxy primer on them, and they're ready to go. And so it's pretty quick. What I've done then is I've laid out my big piece of aluminum. I already used one section of it to make the two doors, and I have more than enough to make the rest of the panels for the back of the Traveler. Now, on these large pieces that go around, you see the arc of the wheel well in the front, they're right angles. And so with a nice big piece of aluminum like this, you can lay them down in the corner, and you won't have to make this cut, you won't have to make this cut. And you can see that two of them fit together just perfectly here. And I'll be using a jigsaw for these cuts because I've got a lot of circular cuts here. I want to do it very precisely and very, very well. But you lay them down and they just fit, so the nice jigsaw cut right here, and we'll separate them, and so it saves me a lot of cutting, and that's great. So what I'll do before I mark this off and mark that arc off, I'll clamp these all down so they're solid, so they're in place, and I can do that. Now I'm also going to mark out where the screw holes are here in this. But what I want to do first is find out, before I drill those screw holes, which ones are actually good for the current timbers, which ones are not. You know, I don't want to have, you can see there's extra holes in here. I just want to use the right number of holes. And so I'm going to be doing a little work before I decide what to drill out in the holes. Now, this is the back section with the which has your fuel filler here. And what you can see is this is not a right angle. This is not a 90-degree angle. There's a slant to that. And so that means you can't lay this up against here and get away with two cuts for one. You have to cut this one separately, and there is a very subtle arc to this. So there's actually a very subtle arc, so it's not even a straight cut, and it's not a 90-degree angle. This has to be carefully done. Again, I'll be using the jigsaw. And you can see this arc here, which has to be carefully done. When these are all cut, then the final piece I can fit into this remnant. I have plenty of space here to do that. And then we will make the final cut like that. So so far so good. We'll see how this goes. And again, you can buy these panels. I think they run from 25 to about 35 pounds each. But honestly, I probably paid certainly way less than 100 pounds for all the aluminum I needed to make both rear door aluminum panel inserts and all the aluminum inserts in the rear part of the body. And so to me, it just seemed like a no-brainer to have nice new pieces there, not ones that have multiple holes in them or had some work that was needed to do some aluminum brazing in there and things like that. And just be very, very clean pieces. So that's the plan. Let's hope it goes well. So with everything nicely clamped down here, and I've got it right up against there, then I can go ahead and very carefully then, using a fairly thin marker, go ahead and mark out where I need to make these cuts. And that's what I'll do. My skill set does come with a ultraviolet light and a little marking pen as well. But I find really that on this particular metal, the black works just as well as using all of that. Now what you'll notice on both of the rear pieces, and this is the one that has the fuel filler opening in it, that there's no screw holes whatsoever. And that's because in the rear section, against those rear posts, these are held in place by fillets. And there's a very short one, and there's a longer one, and they screw into the posts, and they're what hold this in. It's in a sort of a groove, and it's not held in place then by screws, but there's a fillet that you put in after you fit it. So it has no screw holes back there. Okay, so everything's marked out for 3 of the pieces, and no problem in trying to minimize the amount of cuts we're doing by using the long straight pieces. And I haven't marked this one off, but once I get everything cut, we'll mark this off on the remaining bit of aluminum and clamp it down, of course, and we'll be able to get our 4 pieces out of this relatively small piece of aluminum here. So what I like to do is to do the smaller cuts first, so that I don't have a lot of metal hanging on a small contact point and maybe distorting it, and then go after the longer cuts. Well, the last piece is cut and came out nice, and you can see that's what's left of our little 4x4 sheet that we used to make the 4 aluminum pieces that go on the sides of the back of the Traveler. So you don't have a lot of room for margin for error. You have a little bit of extra aluminum left for whatever you want to do. But 4x4 will get you the 4 side panels, and a 2x4 sheet will do the inserts for the rear doors. And for me, this so far, I've of course got to drill out the screw holes in it, but really it's a sort of a day's work maybe, and much cheaper, at least since I was able to get this remnant piece of aluminum, than I could have bought these, and certainly a lot less time consuming than trying to strip all the old paint and crap that was on the originals. So before I drill out these things, and certainly before primering and painting them, I just want to make sure that they fit in, and that the size is right, and that they're nice and flush and firm against everything. And I've already put a bit of a bend in here to get this down along the near the foot here, and this side looks pretty good. So next we'll go to the next step, which will be drilling them out. I made a template with the old ones, and then after that, of course, will be the 2-part epoxy primer. Okay, now that everything's been marked off, I'm drilling these out, and the ones up at the top, where underneath the waist rail, they're slightly larger on all of them than the other ones, and so I'm matching again the sizes of these, so they're pretty much like what came out of the factory.